You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's happening, y'all? Let's get into this as the Tennessee Volunteers are dismantled, torn apart, ripped apart, demolished by the Ohio State Buckeyes, 42-17 in the college football playoff first round. This is it is Locked On Vols. Eric Kane will be joining us from Columbus, Ohio, in just a little bit. He'll be down on the field. We'll get firsthand reaction to this butt kicking. I'm Chris Gordy, host of Locked On SEC. Joining us is our friend Riley Thomas, who is going to chime in and give his thoughts on the Vols. Do want to remind you guys, today's episode is presented to you by FanDuel. NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers get finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. You want to finish strong at FanDuel. The Ohio State Buckeyes, they sure finished strong as, they put an ending to the Tennessee season. And all this talk the last couple of days, Riley, of who deserves to be in, who should have been in the playoff, who didn't deserve to be in the playoff. There was no argument for Tennessee. Everybody said Tennessee belongs there, 10-2 with that schedule and the season they've had. And, man, a quick tip of the cap to all the Vol fans who made that trip up to Columbus. Incredible showing from the Tennessee fans. Unfortunately, their team did not show up tonight on the field. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you said it, Chris. I think this Tennessee team was deserving of a playoff berth. Obviously, going 10-2, you had good wins against Alabama, poor showings against Arkansas and Georgia, of course. But I think this team deserved to be there, of course, tonight. But it was a complete dismantling. Let's just start kind of from the immediate reactions. This Tennessee team is good. It's not elite. Ohio State is a class above Tennessee at this point in this kind of stage call of Josh Heupel's tenure. What Josh Heupel has done in these first 4 seasons, nothing short of phenomenal. Rebuilding this team from 21 after Jeremy Pruitt left, all those things. Getting to this team to the playoff this year, going 10-2, anything after that was just gravy. But tonight was a little disappointing. It goes back to kind of this season, the road woes that are officially on Josh Heupel's docket. The Arkansas game, big issue. Georgia game, another big issue. And obviously the biggest issue tonight was you're without the SEC Player of the Year, Dylan Sampson. You can't undersell how valuable this guy is to this team. How many times this season has he won you football games? The defense of Dylan Sampson, Florida, Kentucky, the list goes on. It was about Dylan Sampson. He ran the ball tonight for a total of 2 carries for 6 yards. I believe caught another pass. 3 touches is from Dylan Sampson. It's not going to win that football game. It starts and leads with him. Nico did all that he could. The O-line struggled. To me, this Tennessee team, like I just said, is good, not elite. Ohio State, past couple of weeks, they're woken up, especially from that Michigan game. So to me, it showed who they truly are, and that is a really, really good football team. Good make a matchup for them against Oregon in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, and by the way, we'll take your comments as well if you're watching live on any of the channels, Locked On Vols, Locked On SEC, and Locked On College Football. Again, we're expecting to have Eric Kane join us here at some point from the field in Columbus. Yeah, man, you said it. I mean, I said the recipe for success here for the Vols to get a win was going to be, bring that suffocating defense you've had all year, dominant run game with Dylan Sampson, and Nico limit the mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. Well, we got the opposite of all that. The defense was not fundamentally sound. They gave up huge chunk plays through the air to Ohio State. Dylan Sampson gets hurt, and again, all reports are it was a hamstring injury, and that's why he didn't come back in. I saw a lot of angry people that made bets in Vegas that had, a parlay or whatever that had a Dylan Sampson touchdown on it, and unfortunately, he never found the end zone. But a lot of people were like, we want an explanation. Why are they just deciding not to play him? No, it was obviously an injury. They wouldn't have decided not to put the SEC's leading rusher out there on the field, but it made a difference, man. And it showed, not having Dylan Sampson, that run game was not the same. And unfortunately, it felt like Nico had to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he had to try to be Superman, and it just was not happening tonight. Receivers didn't help. But yeah, man, the offensive line was just, and as some people have commented, O-line exposed tonight, was average at best, pass coverage all year. Yeah, they had some games that were better than others, but this one was just not good. And like you said, tip your cap to Ohio State a little bit. I mean, they share as bad as things were 3 weeks ago against Michigan. Man, they played their best game of the season, feels like, tonight.
And I mean, go back to Tennessee real quick. The injuries and this crazy time that we're in college football, Tennessee lost 3 receivers to the portal. And then you have Dante Thornton go down, Squirrel White goes down, Brew McCoy was already banged up. I believe he had 3 or 4 scholarship guys at receiver going into that second half. This Tennessee team, because of the portal injuries, was already thin. And then you lose Dylan Sampson. Deshaun Bishop goes down as well. You're rotating O-line pieces as well. To me, this just wasn't the cohesive unit that we had seen all season long. The depth was just not there from Tennessee like we had seen all season long. Chris, I will say this game was kind of reminiscent of what we saw from against Georgia a couple weeks ago. Going into that matchup, I kind of thought the same thing this week. Tennessee would be able, especially up front, have success against that Georgia O-line, had no pressure. Tonight, we saw that same thing against, if you ask me, a very banged up and probably worse O-line at Ohio State than what Georgia has, without their center, without their left tackle, first-round pick. Tennessee had no pressure on Will Howard. He threw for 311, 2 touchdowns. Jeremiah Smith had a field day against Tennessee's defensive backs. It starts up front for Tennessee. Getting no pressure at all, one of the big reasons why Ohio State blew you out tonight.
Yeah, and it's funny. I saw somebody had said, the Vols coming out with their shirts off to start the game, and then they got pantsed in the end. Somebody tweeted that. I was like, yeah, I mean, look, it was just, again, like I credit the fans, man. The threads and the pictures I saw of fans at all the sports bars and everywhere. Taking over College Game Day this morning.
Mm-hmm.
I think what Kirk Herbstreit said, he says, first time I've ever seen 70% of the opposing fan base at game day. Again, fans did their part, man. Y'all showed up and showed out, and kudos to you guys. But again, the team just did not come in ready to play. And it's almost like that loss to Michigan. It was like Ohio State Ryan Day had a come to Jesus meeting about, all right, whatever we did wrong tonight, we got to fix all that and get back to doing what we need to do. It just feels like Tennessee. I don't know what, again, if the game plan was centered around riding Dylan Sampson, he goes down, you got to have a plan B, and it just looks like there was no plan B. And again, I was just look, the O-line not protecting and not giving Nico time to throw and all that. I get all that. On the flip side, this defense, they've been so good all year. To see them just give up, I mean, you blinked it was 21-0. Like that to me was the most baffling, because this defense is way better than what they put out there on the field tonight.
And you could obviously tell Ohio State made adjustments since Michigan. Like, where was this offense in that last week of the season against Michigan? Putting up 42 points, Travion Henderson having a field day, Quinshon Judkins, again, having a good day as well. Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Ibuka getting the football on the outside. Will Howard threw for over 300 yards. I mean, they scored 10 points, had no offense against Michigan. Apparently, Ryan Day and Chip Kelly went back to the drawing board and realized, hey, maybe we shouldn't just run the football on first, second, and third down against Tennessee. Go to the outside, give it to our playmakers, open up the field a little bit, and that will show that we are one of the best teams in the country. Because to me tonight, Ohio State is a dang good football team. If you ask me, Tennessee, it may be better if Ohio State would have beaten Michigan, because then you may have had a home game against a different opponent, maybe even Indiana. Playing Ohio State in this first round was a scary matchup, but I just thought mentally Ohio State may have been out of it. Clearly, I was way wrong. This Ohio State team is mentally tough. Ryan Day and company shut up tonight. They will be a tough test against Oregon on January 1st.
Yeah, it's somebody said, what did Nico throw for? I mean, he just barely got over 100 yards there in the end. 14 of 31 through the air for just 104 yards. And somebody did say, did they, where were the deep plays? There was no time to throw to throw down the field. I mean, to throw a big deep play, like you need timing and protection, and it just wasn't there. And again, I'm not dinging Nico at all, man. Like he played his butt off and showed a lot of heart down the stretch, getting knocked around. And, again, he just didn't have much help around him. And, what was their biggest play? Peyton Lewis had a 26-yard run, and then Bruce Boyd a 21-yard catch. And that was it. I mean, as far as explosive plays tonight, there were not many at all.
And I think that Peyton Lewis run was when you're down 42-10. So
right.
that play came in garbage time. But a storyline and going into this week too, Chris, was Nico running the football. He did that. He ran on third down, getting first downs. He ran it twice tonight for a touchdown. But when you go 14 for 31, having no, as you just said, explosive plays, receivers not really picking you up, that their Ohio State's D-line feasted tonight against Tennessee's offensive line, who had struggled all season, had played better towards late half of the season. Georgia didn't have the best effort. Ohio State tonight, Jack Sawyer company were eating on the outside especially. And I will say this, I had never seen so many batted balls at the line of scrimmage. I think Ohio State dared Tennessee to throw the football, and especially when Dylan Sampson went down, you saw how deep their safeties played, daring Tennessee to run the football without the SEC Player of the Year. To me, Ohio State had a great game plan, and it showed tonight.
Yeah, we just got word from Eric. He is going to join us here in just a second from on the field. So real quick, let's get a quick word from one of our sponsors here. And I want to remind you guys about Rocket Money. Look, did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? It's happened to us. We've had a few subscriptions we didn't realize we were still paying for, and Rocket Money makes it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscription, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Go check them out today. All right, joining us now, he is Eric Kane, live from down there on the field. His Ohio State band is going. Eric, good, buddy. Initial reaction to what we saw tonight.
Yeah, sorry if some more hectic behind me, like the fans are behind me, but it's a team that had a horrible first quarter, and give Tennessee credit. They bounced back in the second quarter, outscored Ohio State 10-0, and I thought Nico Iamaleava's ability to use his legs in that second quarter was huge. But overall, this defense just didn't show up tonight. No pass rush, was really bad on third downs, and Ohio State made them pay. Just no rhythm. The best offense he had all night was Nico scrambling, essentially. The passing game wasn't in sync. Dylan Sampson hardly played. I think he had a tender hamstring, according to the television broadcast. Just no rhythm. A lot of the keys that we talked about in the squad show on Thursday, Tennessee was just never able to get into it. Couldn't run the tempo, didn't win the early downs, and ultimately got his tail whipped.
Is that, in your opinion, Eric? I mean, when Sampson went down, was that kind of like the whole game plan went out the window?
I mean, not really. Like, don't get me wrong, he's a phenomenal player, and I mean, Tennessee is much better with him than without him. But I mean, Tennessee couldn't protect Nico at all. Tennessee wasn't blocking well in the run game, regardless of who was back there. Was it Sean Bishop or if it was Peyton Lewis, whoever? Tennessee was not winning first downs. And again, like, as good as Dylan Sampson is, if he would have gotten 15, 20 carries tonight, I don't know how effective he would have been, just because overall Tennessee just didn't have it tonight. Flipping it over to Tennessee defense, I know you didn't ask me about this, but just what a missed opportunity. It was a lot of the same conversation going into the Georgia game about a beat-up offensive line, for Georgia and, of course, here for Ohio State. Last I checked, Tennessee didn't have any sacks. Tennessee had like 2 or 3 TFLs. Will Howard had all day to throw back there. And, when you have Jeremiah Smith, when you have Obuka, when you have Tarnell Tate, they don't need any more help. And, you're putting McCoy out there and Gibson out there on islands. When your front's not helping them out at all, it's really, really difficult. So to answer your original question, no, I don't think that changed everything. I just think Tennessee had a horrible day up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, what was, defensively, that was perhaps, not without even looking back at the season, their worst performance of the year. Well, why were they not able to get pressure on Will Howard?
Well, Will Howard had a day, and it's always like the opposing quarterbacks always have career days against Tennessee. Graham Mertz in 2023 had a career day against Tennessee. Spencer Rattler had a career day against Tennessee, so on and so forth. But overall, it was again, he was getting the football out of his hands pretty quickly. Tennessee was not generating any pass rush, and they just continued to run the mesh route where Tennessee was getting beat in man coverage, and then linebackers when they were playing zone, their eyes were getting confused in terms of they would follow one guy and there would be somebody else who would come right behind them. So it was a combination of a lot of things, but again, I think it all starts with a lack of pressure. I just don't think Tennessee generated any pressure, never accelerated the clock for Will Howard, and never made it easy on themselves. And it was pretty much a long day.
I know.
We'll get a little bit of conversation of whoever.
I think they're done. I think they're moving on.
Okay. Kind of interesting to hear what's going on there. Talk to me, Eric, about, the environment. The Tennessee fans, man, they showed up. They were not to blame tonight. They were the winners tonight in terms of bringing the presence. And how many Tennessee fans did you see out and about here in Columbus?
Yeah, the environment for Tennessee was again, this is everything you'd want, heading into a first-round college football playoff game when you're on the road. Of course, you'd rather be at Neyland Stadium, but there was orange everywhere in Columbus. The Tennessee takeover that we saw on Twitter, it was real. Driving through Columbus earlier today, you saw so much orange. Tennessee fans were in this stadium early, and they were loud. You saw, for Ohio State, their quarterbacks or receivers or whatever would take the field, and you heard boos raining down in the pregame warmups. You figured that was Tennessee's players taking the field. No, it was Ohio State's players taking the field. Tennessee was just that much louder. I would say there was probably about 30,000 Tennessee fans in here, but any way you want to spin it, and Tennessee's linemen came out with no shirts on. It felt like all the vibes were pointed towards Tennessee, but again, that's why you go and play the game. But to your point, no, Tennessee's fans, they traveled well. It was they did pretty much everything you could possibly ask for. Unfortunately, it didn't, pay a difference as Tennessee got off to just such a horrendous start, and obviously could never kind of climb out of that early deficit.
It's one thing, Eric, if you go to the ReliaQuest Bowl and you win a good win over in Iowa or whatever, and you go into the offseason feeling really good. This year, mission accomplished. You made the playoff. This is what you wanted, but to lose in this fashion, what's the mentality going into the offseason with this feeling?
Well, it's kind of a bummer, right? You just got embarrassed. You just got your tail whipped. And you're exactly right. You won. I was talking to a buddy. He was texting me during the fourth quarter. And crazy Tennessee fans, right? Saying, it's time to have an honest conversation about Josh Heupel. I'm like, okay, hold on. 10 wins. You beat two of your three biggest rivals. You're in the college football playoff. Take a lap. Take a net. Go warm up. Go to sleep. It's frustrating. And I get the frustration because it does feel like in big games, Tennessee doesn't show up. In Athens, Georgia this year, Tennessee didn't show up. Tennessee didn't show up outside of the fans who did show up. Tennessee's football team did not show up in Columbus, Ohio. So I get the frustrations, but you do, once you move past this one, give it a couple of days to let it kind of sink in and be disappointed. But, as a fan base, in my opinion, you should still take the positives from this year. The expectation was to be in the college football playoff. You were in the college football playoff. You won 10 games. Is that good enough? No, you want to continue to climb. You want to go and play in the quarterfinals. You want to have an opportunity to play in the national championship, but you were in the college football playoff, so that is a successful football season. It is difficult, though, because when you lose 42-17, really 42-10, because that's, outside that late touchdown they punched in, you just have a really bad taste in your mouth kind of walking away from this one, and I understand that.
Riley, you got anything for Eric while we got him?
Eric, kind of what was your – obviously a lot of injuries tonight, not just Dylan Sampson, Dante Thornton, Squirrel White went down. Do you think a part of this also was just this lack of depth as well, injuries, portal kind of hurt Tennessee heading into this game as well?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Dylan Sampson obviously was banged up. I'll be intrigued to kind of see what the whole story is there. He started the game, got a couple of carries. I think he finished the game with 3 carries. I know they put him in the third quarter. They threw a screen pass to him or whatever. You didn't have Dylan Sampson, so obviously that's not nothing. But I don't think not having Chaz Nimrod didn't hurt you in this game. I don't think not having Jalen Smith didn't hurt you in this game. Tennessee just had no rhythm in the passing game. Tennessee had no rhythm on defense at all throughout the game. it feels like Squirrel White. It feels like Dante Thornton. It feels like none of those guys could make it through a 4-quarter football game. And that's unfortunate. But are those the reasons Tennessee lost this game? No. Tennessee lost this game because it got whipped up front, again, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Tennessee's best offense the entire day was Nico scrambling. And I loved in the second quarter when they did design quarterback runs. You saw that against Iowa last year, and everybody was kind of calling for that all season long, but it's like, well, they don't want to have him take unnecessary risks. But they did in this game, and clearly it works. But even outside the design quarterback runs, him just scrambling, that was Tennessee's best offense, and that should not be Tennessee's best offense. It's just, again, they were not able to win early downs. They got whipped up front on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Sure, a couple of guys were banged up, don't get me wrong, but that's not the reason Tennessee lost. Tennessee lost just because they picked the worst time to play their worst football game of the season.
It felt like, Eric, that touchdown right before halftime, you make it 21-10, and then you're getting the ball out of halftime. It was like, all right, they are back in this thing. And then you punt. You come out of halftime and you punt. Like, that one just felt like it wasn't the dagger, but it was the pin in the balloon. Because if they can go down and get points, even just a field goal, something, you're like, we're right back in this one. But they couldn't do it.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, Tennessee was outscored 21-0 in the first quarter. Tennessee outgained Ohio State, I think, like 166 to 129 yards. So it wasn't by that much, but they outgained the Buckeyes 10-0 on the scoreboard in the second quarter. So you're sitting there 21-10, and you punch that in there, just under a minute left in the half, and you knew you were getting the football back. So if you're able to go down there and say you score a touchdown and you make it 21-17 with 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, I mean, it is a brand new football game, right? Is it the end of the world if you don't? No, but it's a brand new football game if you do. Well, Tennessee goes 3 and out, and then Ohio State goes down there and scores a touchdown, and that's when it felt like it was really over, because up until that Will Brooks interception, Tennessee had not had a stop in this football game. Outside of that series where Will Brooks had the interception in the end zone, the following offensive series in the second quarter, they had a 3 and out. And then at the very end of the half where they, kicked a 56-yarder prayer, those were the only drives that didn't end in touchdowns until the backup quarterbacks entered the football game for Ohio State. So it's just really, really unfortunate. But now, to your point, yeah, it felt like if Tennessee could get some kind of points there, win the middle 8, and make it a brand new football game, then yeah, you're in this thing for the long haul. When you go 3 and out, and then Ohio State immediately takes it down the field and scores a touchdown, it kind of felt like you had your best chance and you blew it.
Let us know when you got to run, Eric, because I know you're going to go grab some post-game stuff. And by the way, it looks super cold there. I can see the breath coming out of your mouth. I did want to ask you, because we're getting a lot of comments, a lot of people jumping on Tim Banks. How much is Tim Banks to blame, and are you like some of these people wanting to run him out of town?
I mean, your defense is the best it's been in quite some time, and he's your defensive coordinator. I understand that in Athens, Georgia, it was bad, and I understand that tonight it was bad. So there's no way to shortchange that. I get that, but your defense was really good. It was nationally, top 10 defense in the country this year. So no, I mean, I would not want to run him out of town. Now, will he take a head coaching job? Will this game affect that potential? We'll see. But ultimately, I mean, I need to go back and check the tape and everything, but it just felt like Tennessee's defense was lost. It just felt like the guys were slow in man coverage and the linebackers were confused. I mean, all Ohio State did was run mesh the entire night, and Tennessee just couldn't stop it. And granted, when you have NFL wide receivers, I understand that's difficult to do. But, again, it all starts up front. You weren't generating pressure. It didn't feel like Tennessee was blitzing an awful lot. I'll need to go back and check the tape and check the numbers. But I know in games past, whenever it feels like Tennessee's just playing zone and they're beating you apart, it's because Tennessee's not getting home in blitzes. That wasn't the case here tonight. But I get the frustration. I certainly do. But, again, in a couple of days when this can sink in and marinate a little bit, you got to remember this is the best Tennessee defense in quite some time, and he's a big reason for it.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too. I mean, look, the criticism, I get it. There are going to be some people who are like, is Heupel the guy or whatever? But this was your best chance since, I mean, Derek Dooley, Quincy Jones, Jeremy Pruitt, like, Heupel just got you your best chance at winning a championship, in forever, it seems like. So stay on this path, right? Like, you're close. You're knocking on the door. Keep riding this path.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you got to stay on this path. And I mean, there's constant turnover in college football now. I mean, there's already been players leaving the transfer portal. Now that Tennessee's season is over, how many is going to leave via the transfer portal now? And, how serious will you be in terms of attacking certain position groups to kind of start over? Which assistant coach are going to be on this staff next year? Again, it's a brand new team every single year, but this defense specifically has just been building and building and building. And it was really good this year outside of tonight and in Georgia. It was really good this year, but you're completely right. It's tonight stinks and it should stink. But you were 10-2 and you were playing for a national championship. As a fan, in my opinion, you can't ask for much more. You want to take that next step, and that kind of was you were taking this step this year in terms of being in position to play for a national championship. Now you got to go win one. Now you got to go win an SEC championship. Now you got to go win, a first round playoff game or win the championship so you can host the second round or something. And that's up to Josh Heupel to continue to do that in the years to come.
Yeah, go ahead, Riley.
Yeah, Kaner, just kind of the conversation around Josh Heupel is his road low. 2022, of course, South Carolina. Last year, Missouri, Florida. This year, Arkansas, Georgia, and then tonight. Is this a real conversation that we need to be having about Josh Heupel on the road and just a lack of game plan from home to road? Do you think that's kind of a contributing factor to this tonight as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. We can go and study every single game specifically, but to your point, I mean, there's South Carolina 2022, Georgia 2022, Florida 21, 23, Missouri 2023, Arkansas this year, Georgia this year, and of course, Ohio State this year. So, and then again, it's also really hard you guys know this, it's really hard to win on the road in the Southeastern Conference, not just for Tennessee, for everybody. And Tennessee's so very good at home. But I think not necessarily tonight, but I think procedural penalties, pre-snap penalties, stuff like that really hinders Tennessee on the road. But no, to your point, I mean, yeah, to be good football teams and to win championships, you've got to win football games on the road. And to this point, Tennessee's won some games on the road, but they haven't won the big games on the road. So absolutely, that's something, we continue to talk about taking this next step and, where's this program go from here? In 2025, Tennessee needs to win some big games on the road, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, the two regular season losses were on the road at Arkansas and at Georgia, and here the playoff losses on the road. And, I mean, look around, Eric. All four teams in this first round, all four home teams won. So the home field matters, and Tennessee knows what it's got to do for next year. Even if you don't get the first round bye, win the SEC, you want to be hosting a home playoff game because look at the field this year. I mean, like I said, all four home teams won.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's and this will be my last one, guys. Sorry, I had something pop up on the screen. I got to run to post-game press conferences, but no, you're exactly right. I mean, if you didn't believe how big of a deal home field advantage is in the college football playoffs, look at the last 2 days. And even Clemson made it close there a little bit. I know Indiana scored late last night to make it a little bit closer, but I mean, these road teams got pummeled, and the environment was great, and it really is. It's an awesome environment. I mean, this place was so cool. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, this is the coolest aspect of the expanded 12-team playoffs. But you want to have that bye, or you want to be in position to host a playoff game because it really is such an advantage. And there was a lot of talk about how the college football playoff was going to try to even some things up, and one team have an entrance video and all that. I mean, you see some of that with NCAA regionals and baseball and super regionals. Clearly, this was a home field advantage for Ohio State, as it should be. I mean, there was a drone show. There was all these LED screens all over the place. I mean, they were, telling the crowd to get loud whenever Tennessee was on offense, and exactly how it should be, right? And so, really, really cool atmosphere. You want to be the home team in the college football playoffs, and unfortunately, Tennessee was not that tonight, and Tennessee got off to a bad start. The season comes to an end here in Columbus, 42-17.
Eric, great stuff, man. I know you got some stuff you got to go do post-game wise. Get a hot chocolate, stay warm out there, and we'll see you back on Locked On Vols in all next week.
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Chris, thanks for doing this. Riley, thanks for hopping on, guys. Appreciate you.
See you, Kane.
All right, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it, man. That's Eric Kane there of Locked On Vols. Of course, if you're watching this, Locked On Vols, Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football, we are broadcasting on all three. Coming up next, Riley, we're going to give more of our thoughts. We'll get to some more comments from you guys out there. Plenty more to discuss. We're going to be going quite a bit longer here on our crossover edition. So stick with us here back in just a second. First, we'll remind you guys about our friends over at FanDuel, and the NFL playoffs are almost here. It's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel's got so many ways for you to pick up a W. We love betting on which players will score a touchdown first or how many points each team will score. It is thrilling. And not only can you bet on that, I mean, there's tons of different prop bets and different stuff you could do over at FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, rolling along here, our crossover edition, Locked On Vols, Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football. Appreciate our buddy Eric Kane for jumping in with us from is it Ohio Stadium? I just called the Horseshoe, whatever the name of the actual stadium is.
That's all I call it was the Horseshoe. So we'll just go by the shoe at this point.
Whatever your stupid stadium is named up there. But no, Vols lose tonight, 42-17. And you know what? I always say I'd rather take a loss like this. You'd rather take a butt kicking and know where you stand than lose like a last second heartbreaking field goal, because those always hurt way more because you're second guessing everything. There's nothing to second guess. I mean, you can second guess everything tonight. It was all bad, but it just Riley, as we kind of had some time to let this thing soak in. I mean, looking back on what's to blame most tonight?
I think you got to start with the defense because, again, I think the storyline this week was Tennessee's D-line versus Ohio State's offensive line that was depleted without their award-winning center and then their first-round left tackle. That's where it starts. This Tennessee defensive line goes 10-plus deep, led by James Pierce, going to be a top 15 draft pick coming April. And then on the inside, Omar Norman-Lott, Bryson Eason, guys like that. They no-showed. After that sack on Will Howard on that very first drive that was called a face mask, it went downhill from there. If you don't get that face mask penalty, it's a 3-and-out off the field. Ohio State gets off the field. Who knows what happens at that point? That was the havoc that we thought we would see all night long, Chris, was Bryson Easton and company getting back there, sacking Will Howard. But after that play, there was no pressure on Will Howard, which allowed him to throw for 311, 2 touchdowns. Minus the 1 interception, which really wasn't even a bad throw, just a good play defensively by Tennessee. That's where it started for me. You got punched in the mouth on that first drive. You go down 21-0. At that point, you were down by a lot. You had a good momentum swing in the first half, 21-10. Second half, you really didn't show a whole lot of heart, no adjustments. So to me, it started up front, not just on defense. Tennessee offensively could not slow down Ohio State as well on their defensive side.
We have officially gotten, we're just running through some of the comments here you guys have been sending us. We've officially gotten now, Riley, the Tim Banks has to go and Halsey has to go. So, I mean, like both OC and DC have to go, apparently. This Tim Banks conversation is what we had last year. People said the same exact thing after last season when your defense, again, carried you to a 9-win season last year, plus a bowl game. This year, your defense won you so many ball games. Oklahoma, Florida, Alabama. Yes, I know you had 2 bad games against Georgia and Ohio State. What Tim Banks did tonight against Georgia, same thing. No pressure. He has a part of it to be a reason why you lost. He doesn't deserve to be fired. I think personally, he has proven a lot this year to be one of the best defensive coordinators in the country, a great recruiter, going from 21 to what you had this year on the depth in the front 7 and elevating that secondary, which was not the best for Tennessee these past couple of seasons. So, look, I understand Tim Banks gets a lot of the blame tonight, but these firing things, absolutely not. Now, Halsey, I'm not saying you fire him. There needs to be some question marks. Since Golish left, this offense has not looked the same. There's been no tempo, hardly any explosive plays. The points per game is down, especially within the SEC this year. You average 30 or 40 plus against non-SEC. In the SEC, I think you average about 24 points a game. That should not happen for this offense that was as explosive 2 seasons ago. So Halsey, no firing, but there definitely needs to be some question marks, or he needs to develop pretty quickly. Yeah, it's again, some things need to change. And what's interesting is I I mean, now that the offseason begins and then the portal's been open and, where the question is, where do you go first? It feels like, Riley, they really need to, I mean, O-line, I would just start looking at immediately in the portal. Is that where you would go?
Yeah, you've already got the Arizona guard and Wendell Moore Jr. a couple of days ago. The guard was a big play because you're losing Devontae Spraggins. Of course, Cooper Mays, your All-American center. So you definitely need O-line. You're losing John Campbell to right tackle. But I have question marks, Chris, about Glenn Ellerbe. This will be his 5th season next year. We have not seen a single guy that he has recruited start up front. It has either been players he has inherited or they got from the portal. Next season, will we see a guy he has developed, whether it is a David Sanders, highly recruited 5-star tackle this season coming out of North Carolina? Will we see a William Satterwhite take over for Cooper Mays at center? Or is it going to have to be another portal piece because these recruits you get either don't work out or the development on the O-line is not there? That, to me, is where you start next season. You have to get better up front because Nico this season, this lull that he had midway through this year started up front. You could not protect him. It got in his head, and it was better later in the season. But tonight it showed again why you were only 14 for 31 for 104 yards. You have to get better up front, whether that is go in the portal or develop the guys you already have, or else next season it's going to be another 9-3, maybe 10-2, but it could be another first-round drumming if you don't get better up front and protect your 5-star quarterback in Nico.
Yeah, but one comment from one of our listeners. Everything considered, we've had 3 10-win seasons in a row. If you're calling for Heupel's head, you haven't been around very long. Yeah, I mean, look. Depending on how old you are, I mean, if you've been around the last decade, there's been a lot of bad coaching there on Rocky Top. So Heupel has certainly taken them to new heights here. And again, like my thought was this year, could Tennessee make the playoff? Absolutely, but it always felt like 10-2 was kind of the ceiling, and we'll see how far they could go. Now, again, Dylan Sampson becoming the SEC's best, leading rusher. I didn't see that coming. I thought he was going to be very good, but I didn't think he'd be that good. So there were some things that exceeded my expectations. We knew the defense was going to be better. They were light years better than I thought they would be, particularly in the secondary. So there were a lot of things that were improved. But I always felt like this was the first full year of starting for Nico. Like, let's see what he is. Like, I don't, we know 5-star talent and all that, but like, how quickly does he develop and progress? Everybody does it at different levels. Johnny Manziel did it from, the get-go at A&M. There are other guys that took time to develop. Even a guy, I remember Jaden Daniels transferred from Arizona State to LSU. His first year at LSU was okay. His second year, he was the Heisman winner last year. Can Nico make that leap next year? It didn't have to be Jaden Daniels, don't get me wrong, but like, can he be way better, improved accuracy, improved arm, improved everything? Like, if he just does the little things and takes that next step in his development, again, the sky's the limit. I raised the bar even higher for Tennessee next year.
I understand the expectations Tennessee fans had on Nico heading into this season. And even last year when Joe Milton was the guy, people were clamoring for Nico to get in there at some point. And this year, to some people, he was a letdown. But you said it, Chris. He was a redshirt freshman. I know he had been on campus for a year and a half, pushing 2 years. I think people expected better. But it kind of goes also to Josh Heupel and company, not necessarily helping what's around him, whether it's fitting to what Nico does best or being able to create what's around him already, whether it's fix those O-line issues. And yeah, they lean on Dylan Sampson a lot this season, but these midway points through the season didn't really help Nico's development. So next season, you hope he takes that next leap, because if you're Tennessee right now, you're seeing down in Florida, DJ Lagway, who is a true freshman, perform at a very high level, probably better than Nico did this season, performed at a high level yesterday in that bowl game. So you wonder if Nico next season can take that second-year leap in the system, especially because you want that. Because in this system, it's QB-centric. Nico has to do that to take you to that next level that you want to be in this college football realm.
Yeah, I thought, even some of the receivers, I mean, look, we had higher hopes for Brew McCoy coming back for another year. One of my friends who's a diehard Tennessee fan was, he's been out on Squirrel White all year. I don't know why. He's just not the biggest Squirrel White fan. Dante Thornton, I thought, again, another guy who came in, transferred in, a while back, and okay, when's the light going to come on for him?
Mhm.
Chris Brazzell came in from Tulane, thought, okay, maybe a deep play threat, whatever. Again, they all had their moments, but it just felt like collectively this group didn't take off like maybe we thought they could have.
Yeah, the receivers, that Chris Brazzell had a lot of hype going in this year. Same as Dante Thornton last year. He fell off. And then this year, Dante Thornton goes up. Chris Brazzell, not what you expected. I think it takes a while for a receiver, for some reason, to get used to this system for Josh Heupel. Brew McCoy in his first season, not a whole lot. We know last year he got hurt, just wasn't the same player. Scroll White, for some reason, kind of regressed this season. The receiving room, we thought would take that next step. Mike Matthews, 5-star talent. You see a 5-star talent, Jeremiah Smith, go all out tonight. Mike Matthews really couldn't see the field after being banged up kind of early in fall camp this year, kind of made his way back midway, halfway through the season, late in the year, showed some flashes against Vanderbilt. To me, this receiving core has a lot to get better at. You have your Mike Matthews guy. You just lost 3 guys in the portal. Who's going to be that next guy? Is Matthews going to develop more? Chris Brazzell, Brew McCoy's gone. Can Scroll White get healthy? He's been battling injuries all season long. Same for Dante Thornton. The group that surprised me with the tight ends, they had a great season. Underutilized tonight. Kitzelman, Stays, Ethan Davis. Didn't really hear their names being called a whole lot tonight. To me, you got to get better around the elite pass catchers' ability. We saw what happens when you have elite pass catchers in this Tennessee offense of Jalen Hyatt. Can this Tennessee receiver room get there back next year? You'll have a couple of guys back. We'll see what they can do.
Yeah, and it brings up something too. I mean, again, like we talked about, like you want to have the home field advantage. The cold weather, I saw people were making a big deal out of that during the week, and it was like, there were points this week where it was colder in Knoxville than it was in Columbus. So like to act like that was going to be a big factor. But let me just ask you this, Riley, just in your general opinion, had this game been flipped, 8-9 matchup, had this game been in Knoxville tonight, how much different do things play out in your opinion?
So much. I think that matters a whole lot in this matchup. I think it's a closer game, but I think Tennessee wins. I'm picking Tennessee to win in Neyland Stadium. We saw the environment tonight in Columbus. Tennessee fans would be a different animal in Neyland Stadium in late December hosting a college football playoff game. We saw them tailgating this morning at 8 a.m. Tailgating would have started probably Thursday night here in Knoxville. If Tennessee was a home team in this matchup, I think they win. It's a close game, but I would say they would win that matchup. I think that truly matters. And like I asked Kaner, the proof's in the pudding for Josh Heupel at home and on the road. It's just not the same team. This year especially, you saw against Arkansas and Georgia. Last year, Florida, Missouri, Alabama. In 2022, the bad game against South Carolina that costed you a 4-team college football playoff berth. Yeah, if this game's at home, I think Tennessee wins with the crowd, with all that advantages. Absolutely.
It's also interesting too. I mean, back in the day, this thing used to be you get to an SEC championship, you win it. The BCS formula basically was like, if you're the SEC champ, you're playing for a national championship, and all you had to do was just go win one game, and that was it. And you win a national championship. I think looking at this thing now, it's magnified that even if Tennessee won tonight, the road ahead, how many more games you still would have had to win a championship. Yeah. It's going to be harder, man. I mean, this is like, it almost feels like the college basketball tournament where it's like you get to the Sweet 16, you're throwing a parade because it's an accomplishment, but it's like you're still so far away from winning a championship. I just think this expanded playoff, it's great and entertainment and all that, but man, it shows the path to win a national championship in football now is as hard as it's ever been now.
And, kind of Oregon just got completely messed over with their path, having to play either Tennessee and now, of course, playing Ohio State. This path to the college football playoff to the final does not get easy for anybody. I mean, you look at this bracket in general now. Georgia plays Notre Dame. Notre Dame's kind of on a hot streak. Georgia is without their quarterback. Penn State's playing Boise State, Arizona, and Texas. Yeah, this path to win the final is not going to be easy. You want to get that first round bye. For Tennessee's perspective, I know the goal is to win the SEC, but you need to move to maybe try and get a home game next season because I think tonight's a massive difference. I know I said that they might win that game. I do think that would change drastically. Ohio State's a better talent, but a home game matters to me personally. So if Tennessee could have gotten that, I think it's a different mindset for them mentally. personally. So we'll see moving forward if they can get that maybe even next season.
Yeah, and by the way, one of the comments we had here, somebody was saying, man, if this game was played in Knoxville, it's a much different game, but the outcome might be the same. I mean, that's the thing. It's like Will Howard was so good tonight. And look, those Ohio State, like Travion Henderson is a stud. Quinshon Judkins, I still don't understand why he went there, but like if he'd have stayed at Ole Miss, I think Ole Miss would have been in the playoff. But there's all kinds of stories on why they separated and all that. But like Jeremiah Smith is the next great thing, right? At wide receiver. Emeka Buka is, there's talk of him being a first round pick. I mean, the point being, there's a lot of talent at Ohio State team that, they had a late, last second loss to Oregon that could have easily been the other way. And then the stupid Michigan game where it just feels like they have Ryan Day's number, no matter who's coaching, Harbaugh or whoever, they just have his number. But at the end of the day, that's a damn good Ohio State team. And it's like, all they had to do is put it all together, and they put it all together tonight. It ended up a win for them.
For some reason, I guess Ryan Day just doesn't like seeing that maize and blue. He just changes his game plan up. Chip Kelly, something has to happen. Thinking his head, Ryan Day has to out-physical Michigan. And then he realized tonight against Tennessee, oh, wait, I just have better athletes. So let's just go on the perimeter and just throw to Jeremiah Smith. Give it to Travion Henderson. Quinshon Judkins out of the backfield. Tonight, I think he realizes what he actually has at the helm. Because where was his offense a couple weeks ago, Thanksgiving weekend against Michigan? We didn't see that. That's why going into this week, we thought Tennessee was going to be able to hang with them because of what happened against Michigan. This was the Ohio State team that we had saw all season long against Oregon, against Indiana at home. If this Ohio State team shows up against Oregon in the Rose Bowl and beyond, this is a national title contending winning team.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we're going to step aside real quick, and when we come back, we've got a few more things we got to hit on and some big topic things we'll touch on as well. More on our Locked On Vols Squad show reaction show right after this. Want to remind you guys about our friends over the Game Time app. And Game Time, if you've not checked them out before, they're focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better. And Game Time, they got a new feature called Game Time Picks on the app. It makes getting tickets for live events even easier. I just use Game Time. We're going to be going out of town for a couple days after Christmas and bought tickets to an NBA game, taking the wife to, and got some great seats, great price. I love the all-in pricing feature. You toggle that feature on, shows you the total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Seat views, you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with the Game Time app. Download Game Time today, create an account, use our code Locked On College, and get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code Locked On College, get $20 off. Download Game Time today. And as we always say, what time is it? It is game time. All right, one more segment here on our Locked On Vols Squad show. Appreciate Eric Kane for joining us from Columbus at the Horseshoe. Chris Gordy here with you from Locked On SEC. Riley Thomas, good enough to join us as well. And we've been bringing up a lot of comments from a lot of different listeners, you guys watching live. Jackie says Neyland North was a little rough on the Vols this evening. I guess the flag planting ceremony was canceled. Don't talk so much trash. Yeah, man, look, the Vol fans showed up and showed out, but I can't imagine, Riley, for those that are spending the night there in Columbus, you may just want to go straight back to the hotel because I don't know if you want to be hanging around those bars. There's going to be a lot of trash talking going on.
Yeah, it was a wonderful scene, going on Twitter all week, seeing the next meme, the tune boxes, of course, going in the bars, playing Rocky Top this morning, seeing College Game Day, hearing Kirk Herbstreit saying, this is the most I've ever seen an opposing fan infiltrate Ohio State Stadium. Yeah, look, you give your credit to Tennessee fans. They did their all for Tennessee. The team did not. So Tennessee fans do as they do. They travel, they show up, especially when their team has a chance for a national title for the first time in a long time. Being in the tournament means a whole lot to this fan base. Absolutely give credit to them, but tonight just obviously was not Tennessee's night.
Yeah, and again, for those who, if you didn't pay attention, obviously the schedule flips for next year, and it's the same schedule. It's just the home and away flips. So as we kind of start to head into the offseason, turn the page. You get the opener against Syracuse in Atlanta, which Syracuse, much improved team now. Is it Fran Brown, the coach there? Like, they look much better as the season went along. So maybe that game a year ago, you would have said, oh, piece of cake. That's suddenly a little bit of a more tough game. And then you get Eastern Tennessee, and then right out of the gates, week 3, it's Georgia, but you get them in Knoxville. So to me, the whole offseason really needs to be, and no offense to Syracuse, but like the whole focus needs to be on how do we get a win over Georgia, week 3 next season.
Absolutely. I mean, you said Syracuse, that's no gimme. With Kyle McCord and company, they just took down Miami, a 9-3 football team. And then after that, it's all attention to Georgia. I understand that game's at home, but it is Georgia. We'll see what Carson Beck decides to do with this injury now. It may want him to stay for another season at Georgia, or will he go to the draft? Gunnar Stockton, 5-star quarterback. We'll see what he does in this tournament now as their QB1. But it is Georgia. It is at home. Next season, though, Chris, it's going to be tough for Tennessee. You go to Florida. You go to Alabama. I don't know if Tennessee right now, I'm going to pick them because like we talked about earlier with Kaner, it's a road game for Tennessee in those matchups. I don't know how comfortable I am in picking Tennessee on the road at this point. To me, it's shown Josh Heupel, it is a different team on the road than at home. If those games are at home, I feel comfortable in saying Tennessee can win those games. On the road, I'm not going to say that. So to me, you've got to be able to have travel. We thought this defense would travel this year. It did early, but then against Georgia and tonight, it did not. To me, you've got to fix that moving forward.
Yeah, it's interesting too. I mean, the other road games. I mean, you're at Mississippi State, who look, they're probably still going to be a mess. Blake Shapen is probably going to be their quarterback again. At Bama in October is going to be it. I mean, I'd say tough, but like we don't know what Bama's going to look like. You lose Jalen Milroe, Kalen DeBoer's year 1. He loses 3 games. They lose the 4th if they lose the bowl game. Then you're at Kentucky, which isn't as scary anymore. Kentucky's going to look like a completely different team. I was just keeping track of everything they're adding through the portal. Looks like Zach Calzada is going to be their quarterback. Their running back's going to be some kid from Nebraska. They got Kendrick Law from Alabama. I mean, it's like a whole weird new roster for Kentucky, but that's one you look at and say you should win. Oklahoma, you get in Knoxville, so you should win that one. And then at Florida for your second to last game before you play Vanderbilt, who, by the way, looks like they're going to have Diego Pavia back. But like that schedule, I mean, really, it's the home game against Georgia. It's at Alabama, and then, some toss-up between home against Oklahoma and at Florida. Like, that's a navigatable schedule. And, again, I mean, 10-2 puts you right back in this situation again next year.
Absolutely. And, I mean, you're losing a lot of pieces, though, Chris, especially up front on both sides of the football. What is Tennessee going to do on that O-line especially? You're losing Cooper Mays, who has been your center for the past 3 to 4 seasons. Javonte Spraggins, a mainstay at guard. John Campbell Jr. gone at right tackle. We'll see what Andre Carrick is doing, maybe applying for another year. You could potentially be losing 4 of your 5 O-linemen. And then on your defensive side of the ball, losing a top 15 pick in James Pierce. Other seniors are leaving, and Amari Thomas. Your front on both sides is drastically changing. And for one side of the football, won you a lot of these games this season. For Tennessee to win these games on the road next year, you mentioned against Florida, at Alabama, you got one line of scrimmage because tonight you didn't. That's why you lost tonight. You had no pressure against Will Howard. You were unable to protect Nico Imaliava. So if you can't do that next year, you might be a 9-3 football team. Your ceiling, as you just said, probably is again 10-2. But if you don't fix your front 5, your front 7 for next year, maybe a little worse than what you thought it might be.
By the way, what do you make of, there's some Alabama fans I've seen all over social media kind of laughing at the Vols. I mean, you can't do that when you don't make the playoff, right?
All I have to say is you lost to Vandy and you lost to Oklahoma. Tennessee didn't. So that's all. I mean, you scored 3 points against Oklahoma. Please sit at home, enjoy this game. Tennessee got there. You got dismantled. You can say all you want to. Tennessee made it. You didn't. So that's all I got to say.
Yeah, as we start to wind down here, the college football playoff first round, we put a cap on it. It's over. We've played 4 games. They're done. The favorites went 4-0 straight up. The favorites went 4-0 versus the spread. The average margin of victory was 18 points. So, again, for anyone who wants to say, and this was the talking point a few weeks ago, where we were saying, like, Well, even if you don't win the conference, not just SEC, but any kind, like even if you don't win your conference, you're in the playoff. That's all that matters. You just want to punch your ticket. You just want to get in. Yes, you want to get in, but you want to be hosting a playoff game in the first round if you can. You want the bye more than anything, but if you don't get the bye, you need to be hosting this first round because they just showed you home field absolutely matters.
Absolutely. And I think, people are going to talk about, look, the discussion can be there about an SMU team, an Indiana team. Maybe they shouldn't have been in that conversation to be in this tournament. Tennessee was not in that conversation. They were a lock to get in after all the craziness of Alabama losing and Ole Miss losing. Tennessee deserved to be there, but it goes back to the point I said earlier. It matters if you have a home game. Tennessee, if they had a home game tonight, could have won this football game. It would have been a different game. Ohio State may have still won, but it would have been a lot closer. Tonight it shows how much it matters to have a home game moving forward in this college football playoff. You said it, home teams covered easily in these spreads. Tonight it showed Tennessee it mattered. They were on the road. The cold to me wasn't really a factor. A road was a factor. Ohio State was better up front. That's why you lost.
Yeah, you think back to how different things could have been. I mean, Alabama, if they get a stop against Vanderbilt, and at any point in that game, maybe they win that game. If Ole Miss, doesn't give up a stupid fourth down play to Kentucky, they should win that game, and Ole Miss is in the playoffs. South Carolina, if they somehow, if Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt in a game against LSU, probably they're in the playoff right now. But for Tennessee, the moment I go back to is that stupid game against Florida when they scored late. If Florida goes for 2 and they get it, that might have been the third loss, and that could have been the one that kept the Vols out. So it's just so interesting looking back into how little moments here and there can change the season, and that's one that certainly could have changed the tide. Look at what Florida did down the stretch of the season. They finished on a 4-game win streak. Suddenly, arrow pointed upward with DJ Lagway and the Gators heading into 2025. But Riley, as we start to put a cap on things, just kind of give me your final thoughts as the Vols fall tonight and head off into the offseason.
Look, tonight, let's just say it sucks. If you're a Tennessee fan out there, not what you expected at all. Getting blown out tonight, 42-17. But overall, it was a good season for Tennessee. Your ceiling this year to me was 10-2. You had an early stretch of good against Oklahoma. Arkansas happened. But in a year, if you're a Tennessee fan, you beat Alabama and you beat Florida. You can't really say that a whole lot when you're a Tennessee fan, especially these past 10, 15, pushing even 20 years. You were 10-2. You made the first college football playoff, but you have a lot to work on. You are a good football team. You're not to that elite level yet, like in Ohio State. You have made the top 12. It's to get better now. Get a hosting team. Get a host. Make it past it. You're a good team, not elite yet. Still a lot to work on. Be happy with what you did. Another 10-win season, 3 straight now under Josh Heupel. Nothing to scoff at.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, I think, some tweaks here and there, and then the development of Nico Iamaleava, that is going to be the big talking point. And look, I think I cover the whole SEC as a whole. I think the future looks bright heading into next year. We talk about Lagway, we talk about Lenore Sellers, and we talk about Nico. Who takes that big, of the young guys, that group of redshirt freshmen, like who takes that big leap going into next year? That's going to be the big deciding factor. It could be who wins the SEC next year, and it's going to be fascinating. And then you got other guys like Taylor Green's back at Arkansas. Garrett Nussmeier's come back for another year at LSU. So there's going to be a lot of good quarterback play in the SEC next year. And God, all these Ohio State fans in the comments jumping in. SEC soft, bro. Where were you 2 weeks ago getting your ass whooped by Michigan? Like, stop acting like your God's gift to football. You had a great win tonight. Awesome. Your team, hey, great news. Your team showed up. Awesome. You didn't do it 3 weeks ago. Yep. Stop losing to any slappy who coaches Michigan. Harbaugh's not even there anymore. Freaking Sharon Moore's coaching him, and you still can't beat him, Ryan Day. Anyway, but good win for Ryan Day. He got a marquee win. That was nice for him. Every squirrel finds a nut every now and then. This one happened to be a Buckeye nut. For Riley Thomas, Riley, appreciate you joining me on our little crossover here, and appreciate Eric Kane, of course, joining us from Ohio, and he will be back with Locked On Vols coming up all next week. I'm Chris Gordy. If you want to check out Locked On SEC and you're not subscribed, you can go over and like our channel and hit subscribe on Locked On SEC. But again, Riley, appreciate the time, man. Thanks so much for joining us. And thank all of you guys for joining us as well. And again, catch us Locked On Vols, Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football, wherever you get your podcasts, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll talk to you guys soon.